All right, folks, there it is, American Honda's 2024 SCL500. This thing is a new Scrambler style street bike in American Honda's 2024 street bike model lineup. Its underpinnings are Honda's tried and true 471cc parallel twin engine. This is the same engine it uses in its Rebel 500, its CB500X. It's a really nice engine. Look at this thing. We have an upswept exhaust, these covers over the fork, up over the fork leg. We have this accessory seat, which is a little bit taller than stock. It's a nice touch. And that is what gives us this Scrambler motorcycle. This motorcycle is designed for an entry-level rider or someone who's more experienced who wants to add a second bike in their garage, wants something that's easy to ride and affordable and really reliable. We have suspension right here, telescopic fork, just about 6 inches of suspension travel fore and aft. There is the rear shock absorbers. This thing rides on a 19-inch front rim and a 17-inch rear. We have a single piston slide type rear caliper and double piston slide type front caliper. Of course, this engine is fuel injected, water cooled, dual overhead cams, 8-valve cylinder head. It puts out right around 43 horsepower at the business end of that 17-inch Dunlop Trail Max tire. So 43 horsepower, about 30 pound-feet torque. Well, folks, that is a rundown of this bike. We're about to giddy up on it and go for a ride. All right, folks, here we are at the official press introduction for American Honda's SCL500. Here's the mechanical key. It has a side ignition, so you put the mechanical key there and you start this thing up. So we're on American Honda's 2024 SCL500. This marks the return of Honda's CL generation Scrambler bikes. These bikes were made in the mid-60s and they were designed to offer Scrambler-like styling and riding dynamic. So here we are at the official US press introduction for this model. We just had a nice lunch here at the airport in Santa Paula, which is in Southern California. We're operating this 2024 SCL500. It's kind of funny, the name. I was asking American Honda, well, why, if the old 1960s bikes were called CL, why is this called SCL? And they let me know that they couldn't actually use CL500 because that name is already trademarked in the US, probably from Mercedes-Benz. So they had to add an S to the model name. So that is why this bike is called the SCL500. This bike retails for $6,800. $6,800. It is manufactured in Honda's Thailand factory. That is a Honda-owned facility that manufactures many of its vehicles, including this SCL500. Now, this bike is powered, we talked about what it's powered by, American Honda's tried and true 471cc parallel twin. And that parallel twin just makes for a very slim cockpit. I love how slim this bike is between my knees. It's very slim. It has a very low seat height. I'm 6 foot tall, weigh 205 pounds. And this bike, it's very easy to have your feet planted flat-footed at a stop. If you're someone who is shorter or more height challenged, you're really going to like how you sit on this motorcycle. The seat is nice and low. The handlebar, we have a steel handlebar. It has a decent amount of rearward sweep, so a good amount of rearward sweep just helps make for a comfortable hand and arm position on street rides. And it's not crazy tall, but it's not crazy low either. I'd say that this handlebar has a nice bend to it, nice silhouette. It's not too far forward, not too far back, not too high, not too low. Pretty neutral, but it does have a little bit more rearward sweep than full neutral. The foot pegs on this bike, they're a little bit small, but they have nice rubber material inside, which helps quell any vibration from this 471cc parallel twin. Feel a little bit of vibration through the handlebar and the foot pegs, but I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, but you definitely feel it. But it just makes you feel like you're riding a motorcycle, so we're okay with that. The position of the foot pegs on this bike has traditional rear controls, but they're very mellow. This bike doesn't require any weird body contortions to ride it. It's a very cozy motorcycle. I love how broad the seat is. It's well supportive. We haven't been riding too much today. I think we've logged about 60 miles so far, but no discomfort in our posterior region. It's a very comfortable bike with its 3.2 gallon fuel tank topped off. This bike weighs in at 419 pounds, and it's a very nimble little street bike. It's proportioned well. It doesn't feel too big, it doesn't feel too small. Obviously, I'm a bigger human being, and I don't feel like this is necessarily a mini bike. This feels like a full-size motorcycle. Yet also, it's not too big or cumbersome. It's very easy to park. It only weighs 419 pounds, which is pretty light for a street bike. You know, really light would be sub 400 pounds, but 420 pound region generally is a light motorcycle, and it feels that way when the wheels are spinning in motion. Very apt to change direction. Very nice Honda. Now, we talked about the engine, 471cc parallel twin, water-cooled dual red camshaft, 8-valve cylinder head. This engine configuration is good for right around 43 ponies at the business end of that 17-inch rear wheel. So 43 ponies, 30 pound-feet of peak torque. So this thing's surprisingly peppy. It puts power back via a 6-speed transmission. Here's the indicator showing we're in 6th gear through a left-hand side traditional chain final drive. We're rolling on a set of 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wheels, which helps give it that scrambler type stance. Obviously, a scrambler or flat track bike, you generally want a 19-inch front, and even a 19-inch rear is what you want out back. But because this is a road-going street bike, American Honda chose to fit it with a 17-inch wheel, which is a traditional wheel size, which allows you access to basically any type of motorcycle tire rubber. So pretty neat that they just kind of followed the traditional wheel size playbook and made it easy for us to mount really any type of tire we would like for this application. Got a cable actuated clutch. That is what controls the engine and the 6-speed transmission. Cable actuated clutch, gosh, it's got really light lever pull. If you're someone who doesn't have a high level of arm strength or hand strength, you're gonna like this bike because this clutch is easy to use. You can literally use it with your index finger. That is how light this clutch is, which is always a big plus, especially for someone who's new to riding motorcycles. Cruising along this road at 65 miles per hour, the engine does have a little bit of vibration, but it's definitely not off-putting. The rear view mirrors, I like how they're shaped, very aesthetically pleasing round shape and easy to see what's going on behind you. They blur a little bit with the engine vibration, but I wouldn't say it's excessive. But the higher you rev the engine, the more you feel the engine vibration creep through the controls. We now feel it here in the fuel tank. There's some vibes in the seat. So definitely this engine has some vibration to it, especially at higher RPM. Whoa, now I really feel it. But I think it's okay. These Scrambler style bikes, old school Scrambler style bikes, they had some inherent engine vibration, so I think it's okay. Obviously, we have no front fairing or windscreen, so we are fully exposed to the elements. This motorcycle is good for right around 85 miles per hour. So it goes about 85 miles per hour in top gear on a flat surface. So it's definitely highway and freeway capable, but this isn't the fastest thing on the road by any means. Still, it is plenty capable for freeway duty, even in Southern California where everyone drives crazy fast, except us, of course. Now, this bike uses a traditional telescopic type fork. It offers nearly 6 inches of suspension travel. Out back we have a pair of preload adjustable shocks, which offer right around 6 inches of rear suspension travel. The shocks work directly between the subframe and the tubular swing arm, so no linkage. And this thing, in typical Honda fashion, this bike rides really nice. This thing floats over the road really well. These small to medium-sized bumps, you don't really feel them. It just floats over them really well and really offers pretty exquisite ride quality. Of course, when you hit some big bumps or undulations in the pavement, you're going to see that chassis get a little unglued. But for small to medium-sized obstacles, God, this thing glides right over them. It rides really, really well. We haven't really had a chance to ride this thing at pace. There was a couple of fun stretches of pavement where there was a couple corners and we could kind of get some a little bit. So we're not really wailing on this bike, but it has decent amount of suspension support around turns for an entry-level Scrambler bike. The thing I'm most impressed about though is just the ride quality. The ride quality is superb. This thing rides so nice. Ergonomics are super awesome too. It's a very comfortable motorcycle and it doesn't feel wimpy. I really like this bar bend. I like the foot peg placement. It doesn't feel like a wimpy motorcycle. It feels good. It feels solid. Now we have this single color LCD round face gauge package that keeps tabs on the vehicle running settings. Got a nice clock right here, fuel meter to keep tabs on the 3.2 gallon capacity fuel tank. We have dual trip functions. You can also measure the fuel mileage. Now this fuel mileage says we've been getting, if you can even believe it, nearly 66 miles per gallon on this ride. Isn't that crazy? 66 miles per gallon. Unbelievable. To be fair, we've been riding not crazy fast, mostly low speed stuff. But still pretty impressive that this 471cc parallel twin is able to register that kind of fuel mileage. I was kind of thinking the 3.2 gallon fuel tank, you know us, we always want the biggest fuel tank possible, and anything less than 4 gallons is almost just a waste of time. But considering this thing's high fuel mileage number, maybe 3.2 gallon fuel tank capacity isn't so bad. Brake Brakes on this motorcycle. We have a brakes on this motorcycle. We have a 4-piston axial mount front caliper that bites a single cross-drilled disc brake up front, and then we have a single piston caliper grabbing a cross-drilled rotor out back. Brakes are nothing fancy, but they get the job done. Kind of surprising that Honda didn't fit a radial mount front brake. Instead, it's got traditional axial mount where the bolts go into the fork leg like that instead of radial, which is that. Radial mount braking systems generally they offer greater rigidity and greater stopping power because the force you put in through this master cylinder and into the caliper, it just is more effective at slowing the vehicle down when it's in radial configuration. Still, 419 pounds, this thing stops just fine. Fixed always on ABS eliminates any wheel lockup. So let's say you grab the rear brake or the front brake lever too hard, the wheels will not lock. You might feel some pulsing in the lever, but the motorcycle will stop without any problem. So that's a nice touch, especially for a new rider. Still, would be nice if you could disable ABS, at least rear ABS, so you could lock up the rear brake and do some slides. I mean, after all, it is a Scrambler, so slides are going to be limited to power only because there is no traction control. There are no adjustable power modes or throttle mapping, which is fine. Electronics are cool and all, but you don't need them on every vehicle, especially something that's so simple and easy to ride like this motorcycle. Now, right now we're doing a lead follow type ride during this official US press introduction for this vehicle. We can't just do what we want. We're guests of American Honda today, so we can't put this bike through our usual battery of tests. But we have ridden this headlight configuration after dark, and these LED headlights on these Hondas, on the Rebel 500 and that type of bike, they work really good. Nice and bright. They look aesthetically pleasing. They really help you stand out when you're on the road riding in bright sunny conditions like we are today, or riding on the highway after dark. So, good job, American Honda, fitting all LED light architecture on this bike. Yes, some turns. I love how effortless this thing is in terms of handling. For sure, this bike isn't the most aesthetically pleasing new Scrambler out there on the market, but gosh, it rides really well. It's built really solidly. You know how Honda does it. No motorcycle manufacturer, few motorcycle manufacturers out there today assemble and engineer street bikes like Honda does. These things are they're built Ford tough. Of course, American Honda stands by its product with a 1-year warranty, but knowing how reliable and durable these vehicles are, this thing will probably go for decades upon decades upon decades with no problems, aside from its routine maintenance as required by the owner's manual. Yes, some more turns. I love turns. This engine has plenty of get up and go, especially at this lower speeds, this 40 to 55 miles per hour. This thing's got some good power. It's definitely not the fastest thing on the road. What's enough to put a smile on your face? The engine tone is, in typical Honda fashion, it's pretty muted, but you can still hear something from underneath this metal fuel tank. course, you're not gonna wake the neighbors with this bike because it runs so quietly. All right, folks, we are just heading to a photography stop where we're gonna gather some more quality images for you folks at home to feast your eyes on. We are going to check in with you folks in a little bit. All right, folks, we just got done with our official photo stop. Now let's set up our Insta360 1X3 video camera. This Insta360 1X3 video camera is so boss. It allows us to get crazy angles and crazy perspectives that you wouldn't normally get to see without this camera. There's a little bit of a learning curve to learn how to use it. There's also a little bit of learning curve in terms of post-production, importing the footage, processing it and exporting it, and then publishing it to your favorite digital platform. So Insta360 makes it really easy with their proprietary OS enabled app. They also have an iOS and Android powered smartphone app, but I don't use the smartphone app. I like to use the OS program on my notebook computer. All right, we're about to go. We mistakenly said the front brake's a 4-piston brake when it's not. It's only a 2-piston. It's a 2-piston slide type front brake. But the brakes work plenty good for slowing down this 419-pound bike. Whoa! As we're going down the steep hill, we are recording 360. Yes! Maintenance on this motorcycle. Obviously, Honda motorcycles are renowned all over the world for their exquisite build quality and their durability and reliability. So in terms of maintenance, it should be no surprise that the maintenance intervals on this bike are few and far between. Honda recommends, after initial 600-mile service, Honda recommends you change the engine oil every 8,000 miles. So every 8,000 miles you're supposed to change the engine oil, and every other oil change, so every 16,000 miles, you want to replace the cartridge style oil filter. Pretty neat. These motorcycles go 8,000 miles between oil changes and 16,000 miles between oil filter changes. Realistically, most folks, if they're changing the oil, they're probably going to replace that $15 oil filter too. But still good to know that these components are built to last. In terms of valve inspection interval, Honda wants you to take a look at each of the 8 valves every 16,000 miles to make sure they're within specification. Of course, this motorcycle could probably go 160,000 miles between valve inspections. That's how tough these engines are built. But 16,000 miles is the valve inspection interval. Honda also wants you to change the spark plugs at 16,000 mile increments and replace the air filter at 12,000 miles. And that's it for maintenance. Of course, you always want to bleed and flush the hydraulic fluid inside the front and rear brake circuits every 2 years. It's a good idea to do it every other year, especially if you want your brakes to feel nice and sharp, not spongy. So really neat to know that Honda builds these machines to last, and they don't even require much maintenance. So the operating cost on this bike it's crazy. You pay $6,800 for this bike. We're getting 65 miles per gallon. Maintenance is limited to changing the oil, which is 4 quarts of oil every 8,000 miles. The running costs on this vehicle are very low, and I like that. What a practical vehicle to ride. All right, folks, we're taking a little break, waiting for the guests that are along with us on this ride. We will check in with you folks in a little bit. All right, folks, now we're riding on a little bit rougher road. It's hard to see the undulation in the pavement, but this road is a little rougher. And that is where you feel the limitations of the suspension, at least for this heavy 205-pound rider. So it gets a little pogo-y, but not too bad. Again, these are bigger bumps on the smoother pavement. Obviously, they're redoing the road because of these bumps. On the smoother sections where the bumps aren't that big, though, this thing rides awesome. Another gripe we have with this motorcycle is, while this instrumentation, I love the shape of it. I love that it has the MPG meter, the dual trip meters, the gear position indicator, and the fuel level. No air temperature, and it's also hard to see in direct sunlight. It's not the easiest thing to read in direct sunlight. Honda, can you fit an instrument panel that has greater contrast range for riding in the midday sun? That would be a helpful improvement to this vehicle and any other vehicle that is fitted with this round face digital instrument pod. Well, folks, we are on our way back to our home base / launch point. We're gonna wrap things up for you there. We'll check in with you folks in a little bit. Thanks for riding with us. Hey folks, that wraps up today's 100-mile ride on Honda's 2023 SCL500. I know we called it a 2024 model earlier. I presumed that it was a 2024 model because this model release is halfway past the 2023 current model year, but in fact it is a 2024. We had a fun 100 miles on this bike. Really nice bike to ride. It is crazy comfortable, peppy without being too slow nor too fast. It rides really easily. 420 pounds, this thing's really easy to change directions. It goes over bumps really well. Of course, that instrumentation, it's not the easiest thing to see in the direct sun, but we'll forgive Honda because it's got awesome LED headlamps. Like we said, we weren't able to test the headlights on this vehicle after dark like we normally would, but we've operated the Rebel 500 headlight after dark and it works really well, so we look forward to riding this thing after dark. $6,800 for this bike. If you're looking for just a really easy riding scrambler, of course this thing's not going to knock your socks off in terms of performance. It's really not going to turn heads. It's not the prettiest bike we've seen, but if you're just looking for a reliable and functional 500cc Scrambler that's going to stand the test of time, this thing's not going to break down in 5 years. The bolts on it aren't going to rattle out. Of course, this is made by Honda Motor Japan. It's a high quality product, and if you're someone who really wants a high quality Scrambler style motorcycle, I think the $6,800 Scrambler 500 will work really good for you from Honda. All right, folks, that wraps up our official review. Of course, make sure to surf on over to motorcyclistonline.com. That's where all of our content comes to life. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs it down if you didn't, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for riding with us.